Our guest today is the Executive Director of the Illinois Finance Authority. Before joining the Illinois Finance Authority nearly 5 years ago, he served as Legislative Director for the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. Previous to that, he was a lawyer at Holland and Knight. He earned his undergraduate degree at DePaul's College of Arts and Sciences and his law degree at the University of Illinois. He is a graduate of Fenwick High School. He lives in Oak Park. There we go. Fenwick, there we go. I was wondering how he got through. There we go. He lives in Oak Park with his wife, Connie, who is here today. Connie, where are you? There we go, Connie. Thank you. Thank you. And their four beautiful children. Ladies and gentlemen, the Executive Director of the Illinois Finance Authority, Chris Meister. Christopher?
All right. Yes. Well, thank you all for being here. I'd like to thank Jake Doherty for inviting me and the City Club. I also want to thank the staff of the Illinois Finance Authority. Can all of you stand up, staff of the IFA? It's because of our great staff that we're able to do what we do, and frankly that I'm able to be here today. Also, even though we have a large citizen volunteer board, Barrett Peterson is one of our board members, also mayor of Franklin Park. So Mayor Peterson, thank you. Bill Brandt, our chairman, also a Fenwick grad and a longtime friend of Loyola, who is also here, could not be here today. So before I get started, I want to recognize my family, particularly my wife, Connie. Thank you for being here. I have two of my children here. The truant officers are looking for you from District 97. Jacob and Julia Meister, there they are. Jacob is in 8th grade, and Jacob, I'm here to remind you that representatives of Oak Park River Forest High School, Fenwick High School, and Ignatius High School are all looking for you. So we can have that discussion afterwards. Also, my parents, Dick and Joan Meister, my in-laws, Jim and Lee Fleischer, my aunt, Aurelia Costanza, my sister, Erica Meister, and my niece and nephew, Hayden and Mary Claire. Thank you. It's one reason why the room is so full. So I am very fortunate to work with Governor Quinn and with my colleagues in his administration. Again, Christy, Warren, thank you for being here. Andy, Mark Harris. Also, I've had the privilege of working with the Illinois General Assembly and other constitutional officers, and city, county, and other state leaders. And I'm here today to talk about three things: the fiscal stability of our state, the value that the IFA adds to the Illinois economy, and the opportunities that lay in front of all of us. And before I go into the work of the Illinois Finance Authority, I know we're going to be talking about conduit bonds, which is what all of you came here to listen to. Jay has graciously agreed to pay for double-shot espressos for every one of you. So, but I do want to share with all of you the greatest benefit of my job, and that's information. At the IFA, we stand at the intersection of investment decisions being made by hospitals, universities, private businesses, and even family farmers. And what drives the decisions made by these folks to expand and build in Illinois? And I think we know the answers: quality schools, quality workforce, quality transportation, access to fresh water. Here in Illinois, we have all of these competitive advantages and more. But there's one drawback that really threatens our collective competitive advantages, and that's the financial stability of state government. So consider an organization getting ready to borrow and invest large sums of money to stay, expand, or relocate here in our state, and their board members, shareholders, executives, importantly for us, their bankers, are reading news stories about state government not being able to meet its pension obligations or being able to fund Medicaid services at the current levels. And we're talking about some disturbingly large sums. They're up there on the board. Our state's current unfunded pension liability is $83 billion. The cost of Medicaid today for our state is approximately $15 billion a year. And problems of this size are almost unimaginable. There are no taxes or funds available to meet these obligations or to continue funding Medicaid at the current level. It's a question of simple math. Large, unpredictable, and unfunded future liabilities make executives reconsider borrowing to invest in our state. But just because problems are tough, that doesn't mean that collectively we don't have to tackle them and propose real solutions. And Governor Pat Quinn has done just that. In February, Governor Quinn announced that he would reduce the Medicaid budget by $2.7 billion. And last week, he detailed a comprehensive plan, which is a combination of reductions and new revenue. And on April 20th, he presented a bold, comprehensive, and fair plan to address our state's pension problem. And Governor Quinn's plans for pensions requires that both employees and government participate. And in our state, it is the fundamental public policy to work with our friends in organized labor in general. And in particular, we need to work with labor to enact and implement the governor's bold, fair, and comprehensive solution. Now, newspapers and opinion leaders around the state, they say Governor Quinn's got it right. Here's the Tribune, the Sun-Times, and one of my favorites, the Quincy Herald-Whig. We could talk a little bit more about that later. All of these newspapers have endorsed the governor's plan. And even Moody's, not known for giving good news, has called the governor's plan a credit positive, provided that it's implemented. Now, as members of the City Club, we are here nearly every week, sometimes twice a week. And why? Because we care about public policy. We share an interest in the future of our state and our region. Our lives are rooted here. And we want a future filled with opportunity for our kids. Governor Quinn laid down a collective challenge to all of us, not just to our representatives in Springfield. And each of us, of course, we have one senator and one state representative. Governor Quinn proposed plans to fix Medicaid and pension, and now it is up to us and our elected officials to support the plan, see that it is enacted, and see that it is implemented. Now, the state pension crisis and the Medicaid crisis, they must be addressed and addressed now. If the General Assembly plays politics and does not act on these critical issues before May 31st, as proposed by the governor, I can tell you with certainty that it's going to be very difficult to attract jobs and opportunities to our state. So this isn't a political issue. This is an Illinois issue. And it's one that requires bipartisan leadership and bipartisan votes. So this is about jobs, and this is about our future. So let me tell you a little bit about the unique body politic and corporate that is the Illinois Finance Authority. We are a construct of federalism. The Illinois Finance Authority is the primary delivery system for federal tax benefits that support lower interest financing for capital projects for qualified borrowers. That policy is set in Washington, but the IFA, our citizen board, our committed staff, we're the ones that make it work. That's a little diagram for you. Federal benefits supervised by the Internal Revenue Service, delegated delivery system to the states, and then broadly supervised by the SEC. And of course, our state, we're subject to open meetings, procurement, ethics, FOIA, etc. We're an independent agency, and we operate without 1 penny of state taxpayer dollars. We're less than a decade old, but since that time, we've been faced with the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. But look what we've accomplished. We've issued more than $26 billion in bonds to build new hospitals, universities, classrooms, and to convince companies like Navistar to stay and grow in Illinois. These are just a few of our projects. The Illinois Finance Authority is our state's infrastructure bank. We issue tax-exempt bonds for nonprofit corporations, universities, and family-owned manufacturers. We accomplish this without any risk to our state's taxpayers. And the bonds are sold to private investors. They're the ones who take the risk. And the debt is owed by private borrowers, not by the Illinois taxpayers. The bonds are tax exempt, so the financing is cheaper, and repayment can stretch over decades, much like your home mortgage. So when we sit at tables with top executives of our borrowers and their lawyers and financial advisors, we have the dual role of playing facilitator of funding and proponent of sound public policy. So Chairman Bill Brandt and I and the rest of our volunteer citizen board, they're appointed by the governor, they're confirmed by our state senate, and they remain focused on the goal of providing financing to nonprofit organizations and private sector companies to retain and create jobs in Illinois. And I mentioned Navistar. So let me share with you what happens when the IFA, Governor Quinn, the General Assembly, other state officers, and importantly, county and city leaders come together. So for the bond lawyers in the room, you know what that is. That's the cover of an official statement. For the rest of you, talk to the bond lawyer at your table, and they'll tell you what it is. It's the first page of the size of a small phone book. So in less than 6 months, this team put together a tax-exempt conduit recovery bond deal that executives at Navistar say was one of the important reasons for deciding to stay in Illinois and invest more than $200 million in our state in new and upgraded facilities. They decided to keep 1,400 jobs here and to open the door to hiring 1,400 new people. And with us today is Don Sharp of Navistar. Raise your hand, Don. And that's the campus, and actually it's even more impressive up close when you can see it from the Illinois Tollway. It is a remarkable building. And we also have a good friend of mine, Bob Schillerstrom, who was county executive of DuPage County when we put this deal together. So Don led the Navistar project on behalf of his chairman, Don Eustian, and both of them really deserve the credit, along with Governor Quinn, the General Assembly, Warren Ribley, former director of DCO, longtime colleague of mine, and Attorney General Madigan, who worked with the local concerns. So this is the success story. Navistar will move into a new $110 million, 1.2 million square foot headquarters on 78 acres in Lisle, Illinois, from its former Warrenville location. And its new headquarters will include new product design, engineering, global business operations. And importantly, because I live in the western suburbs, the firm plans, Navistar plans to invest $80 million in its decades-old Melrose Park facility, a facility that was slated for closing, and frankly, a facility that all of us in Illinois ought to be proud of because it helped win the Second World War. But it was destined for closing, and it was because of our financing and our package that Navistar decided to keep it open. So combined, Navistar will be investing more than $200 million in Illinois. Now, they benefited from the work of the Quinn administration, President Cullerton, Speaker Madigan. By this bill that we worked on had bipartisan support. But that package would not have meant anything if Navistar did not have the confidence in our state. You know, to use another example, the IFA provided $150 million in financing for CenterPoint Properties project, multimodal facility in Joliet, Illinois. They took a underutilized rail yard and turned it into a job center for nearly 4,300 people. So ours is an agency that provides a real value proposition to our borrowers. We work with them and their professional teams, advisors, bankers, to structure tax-exempt debt. It's the kind of financing that in today's recession makes the difference between having the ability to build and put people to work or do nothing. Now, retaining Navistar was a huge victory for our state. But honestly, over the last 8 years, most of what we've focused on is reinvestment and reinvigorating the Illinois hospital sector. The green there, just to give you what my life looks like, the green is hospitals, the red is nonprofit higher ed, the blue is everything else, and that there's a little sliver of agriculture. So we've worked with Advocate Health and OSF, two of our top-ranked healthcare systems, and they run top-ranked hospitals across our state. We've also had the privilege of assisting with the financing of the new Rush Medical Center, Northwestern's Prentice Hospital, University of Chicago Hospital, Carle Foundation in Urbana. Now let me point out something that I'm particularly proud of because I see it every day, is the new Rush University Medical Center. It's got a distinctive butterfly design. You can see it from the Eisenhower. And it's the largest healthcare building in the world that is Gold LEED certified. And consider, too, the excitement with the opening next month of the Ann and Robert H. Lurie Children's Hospital. Multiply that excitement by 10 or 15, because we've partnered to build new hospitals in nearly every region of the state. And today, Illinois ranks with Massachusetts and New York as a home for internationally recognized hospitals and researchers and doctors. But what does that mean to all of us? Architectural, planning, and engineering firms are engaged to design and build these hospitals. The unionized construction trades go to work to build them. And these new hospitals attract world-class physicians and researchers from every part of the globe. So today, a couple of things I'm particularly proud of, we're working with Ascension Health Alliance of Missouri. It's the largest Catholic health system in the United States. And it's it has confidence in Illinois. It is undertaking a $200 million acquisition of Alexian Brothers Hospital in Elk Grove Village in Hoffman Estates. For Trinity Health Systems of Michigan, we issued $239 million of bonds to acquire Loyola University's health system in hospital in Maywood. I'm sure that the Loyola table is actually pleased about that. Both Ascension and Trinity chose to work with the IFA to put together the financing to make these acquisitions. But these are just a handful of the examples from our healthcare practice. Now, because I come from a higher education family, you can see DePaul University, where my dad worked for many years, we're also active in higher education. We created innovative financing for Northern Illinois University and Illinois State to build new dorms. We've worked with DePaul and Loyola and Columbia College. On the elementary school level, we've worked with UNO and Quest Academy in Palatine. We've even helped the Old Town School of Folk Music. Now, our reach is not simply limited to the 312 or 773 area code. Last year, we helped finance 2,200 acres being purchased by downstate family farmers. And we provided loan guarantees to help agricultural banks invigorate the rural economy in our state. And we've accomplished all of this without scandal and without controversy. We've succeeded in becoming the most sought-after financing partner for hospitals and universities and farmers and manufacturers and other businesses throughout our state. The success of the IFA places us, though, in a peculiar position, at least one that's unusual for a state agency. Our hospitals in our state have remodeled and expanded, and they're poised for the next step of integration into our nation's healthcare system. And universities have built new dorms and new classrooms and labs. And the demand for our services in these two sectors, very important sectors, is reduced from, frankly, where it was 10 years ago. So new construction in these areas is going to have to await a better economy and a real recovery. When we opened our offices in 2004, we replaced 7 separate boards, staffs, and organizations that did what we did, or that did what we do. And I suspect that faced with today's challenges, those folks may well have decided to take in a summer of ball games. Crane. But the IFA is different. Our board and our staff, we enjoyed this challenge of putting together the financing for world-class children's hospitals and working with a great international company, Navistar, to expand and stay in Illinois. But as the federal government reduces funds to support transportation and local economic development, we recognize that we have an increasingly important role to play. And we're already working collaboratively with our sister agency, the Illinois Department of Transportation, to set the stage for public-private partnerships. We're being approached by investors, and we are watching with great interest Mayor Emanuel's infrastructure fund. We have tools at our disposal that can add real value. And we're prepared to partner with you, whether you're a business, a nonprofit, or a local government. Why is it critical for the IFA to expand in these areas and promote essential service public infrastructure financing? Because if we don't do it, it won't get done. We can't afford to be stuck in an economy where banks don't lend to borrowers who want to expand businesses. But the IFA has a track record, experience, and momentum to take on this challenge and succeed. Illinois needs no less. Thank you very much.
Skinny, come on up. Very well done, Chris. I made a mistake. Can you imagine that? I forgot a couple great friends of the City Club. First of all, a lot of these ideas that come up, the speakers is a collaborative effort, but this person sits on the Big Shoulders Fund. He's also a member of the ITT board. I failed to mention him, and I should have way at the top, Tom Langto. Tom, thank you for being with us today. Also, this, I would say is almost public service. He's been running a school, or been over the school for over 30 years. It's harder to get into than Harvard Law School, in my opinion. St. Ignatius, John Chandler. John, thank you for being with us. And thirdly, you really can't run an organization like this without having great corporate support. And one of the supporters, been very generous support, has been Illinois American Water, the president, Carla Teasley. Carla, thank you for being with us. All right, Skinny, questions?
Here, we're gonna, if you got any questions, they're collecting the questions, if you'd bring them up here. I just want to say on a personal note that I've worked with Chris on a lot of different projects through the years. I've been very, very fortunate. This is what's good about government. He's just a great guy, and I'd like to see if we can give him another round of applause and a great presentation. Are you bringing those questions up? Here comes the questions. This is like taking up the collection at church. Nobody wants to give. First question is from Dawn Clark Natch. Oh, very good, Dawn.
I'm so surprised by that, Dawn.
Question is, do you ever use moral obligation bonds? If not, explain why.
What a good question, Dawn. All right, so let's talk a little bit about moral obligation bonds. A subject that I've recently come to dive into with, when the state commits taxpayer dollars to pay an amount certain on a date certain, there's one way to do that in our state, and it's called the general obligation, and it takes a 2/3 vote of the General Assembly. And of course, our capital bill is funded that way, and we borrow the money. And of course, as everybody in this room knows, when you borrow money, the people who lend you the money expect to be paid back at the rate that they negotiate it with you and on the date that they negotiate it. So that is the highest level of commitment that the Illinois Constitution allows. Now, under our statute, we have a step below that. It's called the moral obligation. It's a form of guarantee, contingent guarantee, or that basically says that if the state stands behind this particular project, that if things don't work out as planned, that my chairman, Bill Brandt, will write a letter to Tom Quinn's brother, the governor, and say, you know, this project that we've been working on, it's not working out so great. Why don't you go and ask your friends at the General Assembly to appropriate some money to pay the borrowers? That's how it works, and that's set forth in our statute. And of course, there are a number of things wrong that, of course, all of this in this room is, first of all, is at the time that that would happen, Bill Brandt would have already disconnected my head from my body. And then Governor Quinn probably would have disconnected Bill Brandt's head from his body. And then the governor would have to negotiate with the legislature. And we're fortunate at the IFA, while that we are stewards of over $3 billion of moral obligation, we have never had a call on it. And I think, you know, that is a tribute to the drafters of the statute, some of our predecessors, and some of the folks that we've worked with in the governor's office over the years. Moral obligation, I've been told, I don't have this on firsthand authority, but maybe one of the bond counsel in the room could answer this. I believe it was actually developed by Richard Nixon's Attorney General, who was a former bond lawyer. So did I answer your question, Dawn?
Has the state ever had to back up a moral obligation bond? You're saying
yes. Yes. And Dawn Netch asked, has the state ever had this train of unpleasant circumstances that I just described? Yes, it has. There are other statutorily created entities in our state. They were given this form of credit enhancement, and things did not work out as planned. And the people that lent the money wanted their money, the money that they lent, plus an interest on a date certain. And so letters went from those boards to the governor. Actually, this has happened in past governors. And then every year, the governor has to say to the General Assembly, hey, why don't we appropriate a few $100 or $1 million for project X, Y, or Z to pay the borrowers. The IFA has never done that, though, Dawn.
Hey, you know what, Chris? We don't have many more questions, but I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
And that is, when you say that, I just was a little confused. The IFA is not funded by taxpayers' dollars. Is that correct? Could you explain that?
Yeah, that's correct. And again, all of us live in a world where government is expected to do more with less. We're actually a success story. There were 7 entities, some of which were supported by taxpayer dollars, some of which were not. And in '03, they were consolidated into a single entity. And we support all of our operations by fees that our borrowers pay when we close the bond deal. We're not actually technically state employees. We're not in the state pension, and we have our own health benefits.
Very good, very good. Can we have another round of applause before we do the drawing? Thanks.
Good job.